Yo, what's up, world? Welcome to www.intouchnews.com. If you're watching us there, Facebook, YouTube, what have you, you're tuned in to the Life Malcolm Show. It's another wonderful Tuesday. Taking Tuesdays back. That's what we say right here. Hope that you're tuning in. I gotta do all my Facebook diligence to start the watch party, but listen, you don't have to wait on me to start the watch party. You start a watch party, get people in your watch party. I'm gonna pull people into mine because this might be a good discussion. We're gonna talk about, if you saw the post, we talking they ain't teach us. That's become one of the favorite segments of the Life Malcolm Show, as well as a word from the word. So we're going to ride on those two particular segments today. But before we get to that, we want to talk a little bit about the colonial virus. Actually, it's going to help us frame our discussion about what they ain't teach us, and it's going to also lead us into our discussion for a word from the word. Last week, we talked a lot about no investigation, no right to speak. That was a quote that we started the show with and ran with that throughout the theme of the show. And this week, we're going to keep a similar structure. We're not going to start the show with the quote this time, though. We will have the quote for you at the end. It's a quote. Well, we might bring it in before the end, but we're going to have a quote for you. However, what's framing our discussion and leading our discussion today is the newsworthy colonial virus vaccine. So I know y'all might wonder why I can't get this grin off my face. I'm really trying not to smile so much, but it just tickles me that this vaccine and this colonial virus excitement has everybody so caught up. I shouldn't say everybody, but has so many people caught up, because to me it's just the goofiest thing in the world. And so I should begin the show by saying something like, I am not a doctor. Nothing that I say intends to provide medical advice. Follow. I was going to say follow the orders of your doctor, but that might be medical advice. That might not be a good. So listen, what I want you to do is keep in mind that I am not a medical doctor, nor am I sharing this information with any intent to give you any medical advice. I want you to just listen to the discussion, call in. Oh, I didn't do the call-in number thing. Listen, 813-444-9588. Call up. Jump in the discussion. Let's talk about this colonial virus and the vaccinations and whatever other machinations are going on regarding this phenomenon. So, no medical doctor here, just a guy, African working class man who's had the misfortune of being captive in the United States since birth. On the one hand, it's a misfortune, but on the other hand, it's a blessing, because I get to be right here in the headquarters of colonialism and capitalism, right where we African working class masses are tasked with the job of overturning the nasty social system that victimizes us each and every day, even when it comes to our health. You might see, can't tell if you can see my shirt all the way. If not, it says, "Fighting back, my mama ain't burying me." So when I got the shirt with the constant military assault on us in mind. What I mean by that is the way the white ruling class, through its international military known as the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, what have you, and as well as the domestic military, the police, the sheriffs, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all the alphabet boys that constantly attack, cage, capture, shoot, and kill us. When I purchased this shirt, I had in my mind fighting back against that kind of aggression. But now, since in the wake of the colonial virus, I know, y'all call it the coronavirus. I don't know nothing about corona. I don't know nothing. Well, I know a little bit about COVID and SARS too, and I know a little bit. But what I know a whole lot about is colonialism. And I know that everything that has African people sick, dead, close to death, everything wrong with African people in this country and around the world is caused by colonialism, including this virus that has everybody masking up and what have you. And so, yeah, keep in mind when I say colonial virus, I'm talking about the thing that you may more commonly hear called the coronavirus or the COVID. And, last week we talked, that's why it's important to listen to previous shows, because sometimes I piggyback or connect back to the shows. Last week we talked about how important it is to be up on terms, to make sure we study. Remember, that was part of the discussion. Study to show thyself approved. That was our word from the word. And no investigation, no right to speak. That was a quote that we worked with last show. So when we talk about this idea of colonial virus, we connect that to colonialism, which is a material or tangible kind of social existence, as opposed to racism, which is ideological, theoretical. You can't really put your hand and your finger on it. It's just kind of floating around as an idea or what have you. But colonialism is material, tangible, touchable, seeable, and overturnable. You can actually do something about colonialism. You could take colonialism medicine called revolution and do something to overturn colonialism. And so, as we talk terms, right? You got this coronavirus, and so they want to call it something, right? They want to call it something that takes our attention away from the material reality that we are afflicted by these ailments and illnesses because of colonialism. So they give it some other kind of name that does not connect it to the parasitic social system in which we live. However, by taking the phenomenon commonly known as the coronavirus, and putting an apt, appropriate name on it, like the colonial virus, it gives us a clearer picture, a better idea of what it is we are up against regarding this new wave of illness that white mainstream media tells us affects us drastically these days. So this shirt, I'm fighting back against colonialism, the colonial virus, and all of the absolutely ridiculous kind of stuff these people keep feeding us regarding this. I guess I gotta call it a disease. Listen, I have a serious issue believing anything white people tell me. Generally speaking, I mean, like if I know some white people who can tell the truth. sometimes. And so that's generally speaking. However, I have a serious time just believing what white people say about anything regarding, certainly regarding African people and regarding themselves, because they often lie about us to make us look bad and lie about themselves to make them look better. So I'm a skeptic. And that's real, y'all. They got to prove it for me to accept it. Some of y'all might remember that from a spoken word line that was kind of famous. I made famous a while ago, famous in the little poetry circle. But yeah, I'm a skeptic. And so I make no bones about that. We know that the Life Malcolm show is a biased African working class perspective. So this idea of fighting back, my mama ain't burying me. My mama ain't gonna bury me from the colonial virus. I said it on record. And I've seen over the course of this colonial virus playing out what people say, whatever they say about it, and then people are happy to report, people who like, they don't believe in it or they don't wear masks or whatever it is they say that's anti-common thought regarding the colonial virus. Then if they should succumb to illness or death after having made such statements, mainstream media rushes to the opportunity to point it out and say, see, they didn't believe in it, they didn't wear masks, and now look, they sick or dead or something like that. So you've seen that. So I don't mind being on record saying that Life Malcolm ain't gonna get the colonial virus if I don't already have. I might have it. Colonialism is all around us, but I ain't gonna get sick from the any sicker than I already am from colonialism, from this particular colonial virus, and I certainly ain't gonna die from it. My mama ain't gonna bury me from this colonial virus because I'm fighting back, and I'm fighting back because I can fight back because I'm an organized African working class African. It means I belong to an organization that helps me understand who I am in this world, my place in this world, and it also gives me a theory that is based and rooted in scientific revolutionary practice. And so that the shirt in the light of this colonial virus has taken on a different meaning for me. So when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit about this colonial virus vaccine, but allow me to set up the rest of the conversation that we'll have throughout the program by asking you to do a bit of research. Do you know, or have you heard of the Tuskegee Experiment? The Tuskegee Experiment is something that I learned about, and a lot of Africans in my generation and perhaps older, learned about in school. I'm not sure if they still teach it. It's certainly not something that my younger children have come home from school excited to talk about, with questions, inquiring if such a thing could occur. So, do you know about the Tuskegee Experiment? If you haven't heard of it, or even if you have, why don't you, in our next minute, take a minute to look it up, Google it, because we're going to talk about it. I want you to be right in step with me as we talk about it. I don't want to, it was an intricate kind of experiment and a lot of moving parts. So I want you to be able to keep up as I breeze through the pertinent parts of the Tuskegee Experiment in our next segment after the break. So stay tuned, do your quick research, come back and get with us on the conversation side of the game. My name is Life Malcolm. This is In Touch News, where everybody is a star. Stay tuned. Coming right back with the Life Malcolm Show.
been injured, you deserve help from an attorney that knows how to handle your injury claim. This is Attorney Clinton Paris from the Law Office of Clinton Paris. For over a decade, I worked for insurance companies, and now I use that knowledge and experience to help people that have been injured. For a free consultation, call me, Attorney Clinton Paris, at 813-413-7924. That's 813-413-7924, or at parislawoffice.com. At the Law Office of Clinton Paris, we take the pain out of being hurt. Offices, Riverview.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. You can make a difference by dropping off a hot meal and saying a quick hello. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't cool and by letting your friend know you care. Learn more at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
On your smooth soul and R&B station.
On the World Wide Web.
In Touch Radio.
All right. Welcome back to the Life Malcolm Show. Y'all see me up in here trying to get it together. Got to get it together. All right. So, the Tuskegee Experiment. Before we jump right into the Tuskegee Experiment, I want to say this, man. This vaccine came out today. I'm told people been getting the vaccine, and you know, if you've been following the program, that we like quotes and proverbs, etc. And this is a proverb of sorts. Let's just call it an old saying that we've all heard. Haste makes waste. You heard that before, haven't you? Haste makes waste, right? And so one of the things that I've heard about this colonial virus vaccine since it's made its way into the colonial virus discussion is that how it's coming quickly. It's come out very quickly. They because of such a dire need for some kind of control over this colonial virus, that they've been able to hastily make this vaccine. And there are people who are hastily moving towards taking this vaccine. But haste makes waste. I'm a firm believer in that. On the other hand, a little rain every day fills the rivers to overflowing. So some people want the quick way out, right? Some people want the quick fix. Some people are running to the vaccine man to get this vaccine without having done any investigation, without doing any study, just based on the word of people who have fooled us most of our lives, if not all of our lives. Which brings us to the Tuskegee Experiment. Now, the reason why I wanted you to look up the Tuskegee Experiment, hey, Candelo, one of the reasons why I wanted you to look up the Tuskegee Experiment, if you have not, even if you have heard of it or if you had not heard of it, is because many people, right, when we think of the Tuskegee Experiment, we know that these African people, African men, in, was it Macon County, I believe, Macon County, Alabama, but somewhere, around Tuskegee University, African men there were 600 of them. 399 of them had syphilis. 201 did not have syphilis. And the 399 men who did have syphilis were part of this study where all 600 people were allowed to live as if they did not have syphilis. No treatments, nothing like that. They were told, however, by the white people who conducted the study that they were being treated for bad blood, which could have meant a number of things during that time. What a lot of people, so that's generally what people know. And so these African men in Tuskegee, in the Tuskegee Experiment, had syphilis and they were left untreated, and it was a bad thing, right? But what most people don't realize, I didn't realize it until maybe just a few years ago. When I say few years ago, thinking like 5, 6, 7 years ago, it wasn't until about then I realized that the Tuskegee Experiment, how long do you think it lasted? If you just had to guess right off the top of your head how long the Tuskegee Experiment lasted, where this university in this town were allowed, this university in this town was allowed to have this, to conduct this experiment on 600 African men, right, playing with their lives and their health, what have you, because syphilis, if one has it, can do awful things. It can cause blindness, deafness, skin problems, and other ailments, even up to death, right? And so when they taught that stuff in school, the Tuskegee Experiment idea in school, it was a very short paragraph in the history book, and it didn't leave the kind of impact on me that impressed upon me. This experiment lasted for a significant length of time. But 5 or 6 years ago, I learned that the Tuskegee Experiment began in 1932 and ended in 1972. It lasted for 40 years, 4 decades. White people experimented on African people in the name of medical science. Now, these days, we call it the Tuskegee Experiment. In those days, however, they called it the Tuskegee Study. Again, we talk about terms: racism, colonialism, corona, colonial virus, experiment, study. See, if you call it a study, doesn't really pull the covers back and expose the fact that this study ain't nothing other than an experiment. And most times, right, I also learned this about 5 years ago, or at least came to this conclusion, that oftentimes when we see the word study, like if you go to college and have to participate in research papers, writing research papers, or reporting on them, you'll learn that a lot of the stuff you read are called studies. Like you'll see, according to this study, and they conducted this study because, and like for example, they'll tell you that studies show that people who don't make it to the 3rd grade are likely to end up in jail or prison. They'll tell you that studies show that people who grow up in single-parent homes are less likely to succeed in life as far as education, economics, and what have you are concerned. They'll say studies show, but it's not this matter of some kind of abstract study, this theoretical thing where there's this academic exercise where there's some study going on. They just kind of no. These people are conducting active experiments on us that they call studies because they do study us and then write reports about us. And if you are unfortunate enough to have to go through that process to get a degree, you'll learn that oftentimes you read experiments about your own self and you have to report about them as if you ain't talking about you. But the reality is the Tuskegee study was a Tuskegee experiment. And check out how it began. It began as a follow-up to this experiment that happened in Oslo, Norway. Have you ever heard of the Oslo study? Maybe not. The Oslo experiment. Maybe not. It's not as popularly mentioned as the Tuskegee experiment. So the Oslo experiment, which occurred in Oslo, Norway, was an experiment that white people conducted on a couple thousand or so white men. It was what they call a retrospective study. So these white men already had syphilis, already had the symptoms and signs of such, and so this study, the Oslo experiment, intended to help people learn more about the effects of syphilis as it progresses, left untreated, in patients who knew that they had the illness and volunteered themselves for the experiment. So white people in the U.S., though, this happened around 1928. White people in the U.S., though, figured that they could do it better than the people in Norway. The white people using white people for an experiment, they like, no good. So what we'll do is we'll use Africans here in the United States as subjects for what they call prospective experiment. So instead of being retrospective, where it looks at a group who is afflicted with these symptoms and ailments already, what prospective studies do is they take unsuspecting, in this case at least, unsuspecting subjects who have no signs, no symptoms, no ailments of a disease, of a certain kind of condition, in this case, of course, syphilis, and pull them into this process. And even though, in this case, in the Tuskegee experiment, even though they had the ability to treat these people who were in fact afflicted with this infection, they were able to leave the disease untreated so that they can find out how it happens, how it progresses in African men or people in general if left untreated. But the African men did not volunteer for to be subjects in the experiment. They were baited. White people would tell them, if you come and participate in this study, then you'll get free medical care. If you come and participate in this study, we'll take care of your death benefits and other such things. Some perks. They tried to make it look attractive. If you come be a part of the study, we'll give you a little of this and a little of that for free. And it sounds very much like what I'm hearing these days on popular radio shows and television commercials, where they say, yeah, come on and get the vaccine. I even heard one commercial say, you're doing the guinea pig a disservice when you call yourself a guinea pig, because the guinea pig not even from Guinea. And you really are a hero if you let these people experiment on you. All kinds of stuff they say to bait African people. Oh, and they tell us it's not enough of us participating in these studies and getting these vaccines. And since we don't participate, then they can't really figure out whether the vaccine gonna work on us and how effective it really is. And so they bait us much like they did to us during the Tuskegee Experiment. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get back from this break. 813-444-9588. Call up. I want to hear what you have to say about the vaccine, about the Tuskegee Experiment. Call me up and tell me you knew that it happened 40 years, if you did know. But stay tuned. We're coming right back with some things teach us, tying this whole thing together in a real neat bow at the Life Malcolm Show.
In Touch Radio, where you can listen to a cruising flow of smooth soul and jazz, today's R&B, a fun touch of hip-hop and gospel.
All my music on one station.
Giving you a buffet of music, news, and entertainment. We're In Touch Radio.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan. We were able to get in touch with each other in no time. The whole experience was fine. If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Thinking politics? Tampa Bay Politics is on every Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Angela Birdsong. Tune in right here on In Touch Radio.
What's up, good people? Welcome back to In Touch News, where everybody is a star, especially you if you're listening like you're a star to me. And you can call in 813-444-9588 and ask your questions. You can also type them in online. I see one question came in about the AIDS and HIV. Was that a study? It has all of the trappings, and that question came in from James Gallen. Appreciate it, Sheriff. The whole HIV AIDS idea has the same trappings that the Tuskegee Experiment had, and the same trappings that this colonial virus phenomenon has. They just tell us stuff that don't make sense, and because we don't study, because we don't research, because we don't do the historical work we need to do, because we don't really have a good idea of the material world in which we live, the social system which has bound us since our captivity here in this country. We completely follow hook, line, and sinker whatever these people say. And so that's why this program, the Life Malcolm Show, intends to bring clarity to reality and wipe away all the confusion that's kept us in a backwards kind of state. So yeah, HIV/AIDS, I don't believe in that stuff, and not on some kind of conspiracy thing, but it just doesn't make sense. You know, generally speaking, either a host kills the virus or the virus kills the host. They don't just live together happily, you know, in some kind of symbiosis. The only kind of thing I know where the host and the parasite live together in some kind of integration is this relationship we have in America, African people in the ruling class. We the only kind of thing that can try to coexist with our host, try to coexist as the host with the parasite. That's the only kind of relationship I'm aware of where that thing happens. Like, and we need to do something about that. But because that kind of reality frames our lives, then it's easy for us to believe that it can happen in other types of circumstances. For example, with the AIDS virus and now with the colonial virus, we can all just get along. But that brings us to the point in the show where we talk about what they ain't teach us. And we're going to bring up, generally, when I do they ain't teach us, I like to talk about Africans and teach us about Africans that they ain't teach us about. However, every now and then, and if I can fall back on my Baptist upbringing, every now and then, and every once in a while, that's what they used to say at my church. Every now and then, and every once in a while, we reach back and get a old dead white man and make them kind of relevant with they ain't teach us. And today, we're going to talk about an old dead white man who died he lived too long, died way too late. Should have died years before he did die. But he lived long enough to inject the most ridiculous kinds of ideas into scientific discussion. And many of us to this day still live faced or feeling the impact of Samuel Adolphus Cartwright. Now, this Cartwright wasn't on Bonanza. No, this is not the Bonanza guy. This guy, Samuel Adolphus Cartwright, was a medical doctor. You can look him up, Google it, or however you like to do your research. And you'll see that this guy, Samuel Adolphus Cartwright, was a medical doctor during the times of chattel slavery. You see him, old, decrepit-looking white man who gave us 2 scientific diagnoses for our colonial condition. Instead of calling our behavior the consequence of colonialism, he came up with some scientific terms, injected it into scientific society, and we still feel the effects of that today. Those 2 things are drapetomania and diaesthesia aethiopica. We're going to talk about that as soon as we talk to this caller. Caller, come in.
Yes. Is this Malcolm Life?
This is Malcolm Life. I like Life Malcolm better, but yeah, this is Malcolm Life.
Malcolm.
Yes, sir. What's going
on?
Who is this, please?
My name is Malik.
How you doing,
Malik
Malik?
Abdullah.
Yeah. How you doing, Malik? Welcome to the Life Malcolm Show.
All right, Brother Life. I've seen, I saw on your webpage, on Facebook rather, that they didn't teach us the word. What do you mean, if I may get some clarification on it?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking the question. I apologize if my post was unclear. They Ain't Teach Us is one segment of the Life Malcolm Show that we're featuring this evening. A Word from the Word is another segment of the Life Malcolm Show we're featuring this evening. So they don't necessarily, I did not intend to convey the idea that they ain't teach us the word, although that might be very true. That wasn't the point of the post. The point of the post was to announce to people like yourself who tune in and watch and read what I write that, one, they ain't teach us, and we're talking about this white guy you're looking at on the screen right now, Samuel Adolphus Cartwright. They ain't teach us about him, and I'm going to tell you why. And then as we get ready to bring the show to a close, we're going to have a word from the word. Does that make sense to you, Malik?
A word from the word?
Yes, we're going to have a word from the word. But I want to get back to this guy right here, this Cartwright guy, unless you have something you want to add. I hope I cleared up the question, the confusion that my post elicited.
I was looking at the post on Facebook.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything else other than that. So is there something else other than that I don't see anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, brother. Stay tuned. Listen, let me break it on down. And if you have some questions about They Ain't Teach Us or what we say in the next segment, A Word from the Word, man, please call right back. You've been our only caller so far. I'm really happy to hear from you and wouldn't mind hearing from you again. So stay tuned. But I want to make this point. And yes, because this guy, Samuel Adolphus Cartwright, came up with drapetomania. You ever heard of it? So drapetomania is, let me read it for you. So Samuel Cartwright, he's a medical doctor. He said that drapetomania is a malady that was a consequence of masters who made themselves too familiar with slaves, treating them as equals. If treated kindly, well-fed, and clothed, with fuel enough to keep a small fire burning all night, separated into families, each family having its own house, not permitted to run about at night to visit their neighbors, to receive visits, or use intoxicating liquors, and not overworked or exposed to too much weather, they are very easily governed, more so than any other people in the world. If any one of them or more of them at any time are inclined to raise their heads to a level with their master or overseer, humanity and their own good requires that they should be punished until they fall into that submissive state which was intended for them to occupy. They have only to be kept in that state and treated like children to prevent and cure them from running away. So that's what drapetomania was. Drapetomania was the sickness, the malady, according to this doctor, of running away from the slave master. If you had enough sense, if you were smart enough, intelligent enough, courageous enough to resist slavery by running, not even by killing the slave master like we should, but just running away from the slave master, then this medical doctor said that we had a sickness that could be cured just by keeping us in small groups like they like to do. You know, you see how they try to break up our assemblies, whether they call it peaceful protests or not. They always want to break us up into small groups, make us think our groups are small, make us think we're the minority, impose artificial borders on us to separate us instead of having us come together like the nation that we are, right? It still affects us to this day. As a matter of fact, you can't run from the police, right? You know, officer, overseer, you've heard the idea that the police were the original slave catchers. There are laws on the books right now that make it illegal to run from the police. They call it resisting arrest without violence. If you run from the police, on the one hand, it's illegal to defend yourself against the police with violence, and it's illegal to run from the police without violence. No matter how much violence the police do to you. So you can't fight violence with violence, and you can't run from violence. And if you do run from violence, according to Dr. Samuel Adolphus Cartwright, you sick. And then he had this thing called diaesthesia aethiopica. Diaesthesia aethiopica said his diagnosis, the symptoms rather, of diaesthesia aethiopica were laziness, sluggishness, and you didn't want to work. But Dr. Samuel Adolphus Cartwright said that diaesthesia aethiopica, you know, of course, Aethiopica, Ethiopia, right? Diaesthesia aethiopica was easily curable if treated on sound physiological principles, and sensitivity of the skin was one of the symptoms of the disease. So he said what you got to do is first have the patient well washed with warm water and soap, and then anoint the skin over in oil, and then with a broad leather strap, slap the oil into the skin, and put the patient to some kind of hard work in the sunshine, and that's going to cure the patient of being lazy, going to cure the patient of diaesthesia aethiopica. And these the folk y'all listen to when it comes to the colonial virus vaccine. And so, this, you can see, this Cartwright guy lived hundreds of years ago, I think he died in like 1823. But, he was practicing medicine in the 1700s. So this is a long time white people have been studying us and coming up with these scientific diagnoses regarding our health and our lives. And as you'll see, as we bring the Life Malcolm show to a close. Caller, I hear you coming in. You're going to have to hold for me. We're about to go to break. But as soon as we come back from break, we're going to pick up with you. Stay tuned to the Life Malcolm show. Thank you. Well, maybe we're not going to break right this second. Maybe we are. Do we have a call?
Smoothing out your favorite R&B flavors.
What's your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor.
In Touch Radio.
Hello, Kubo. What have you got planned for today?
Come on, this way.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
It's the most powerful magic there is.
Head outside to discover incredible animals.
Wow.
And beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure. So grab your loved ones and explore a world of possibilities. Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
My teacher said that we should have a plan in case of an emergency. Do we have one?
First thing I'm gonna do is grab a flashlight with dead batteries.
I'm going to start randomly throwing clothes in the bag. You two will be hiding in the closet and Dad won't be able to find you.
And that's when we both start crying.
Uncontrollably. Can you pass the cutlets?
Winging it is not an emergency plan. Make sure your kids know what to do during an emergency, who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Search Ready Kids at nyc.gov or call 311. Brought to you by the New York City Office of Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
All right. Welcome back to the Life Malcolm show right here on In Touch News, where everybody is a star, including you. My brother stars call in to the show, though. Caller, come in. Caller, you still there? All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
hello?
yeah. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, man, this is Walt.
Walt, what's going on, brother? Walter Smith II in the building. What's going on?
Hey, man, I'm loving this show. I'm loving the topic, man. You're right. Adolphus Cartwright was crazy as hell.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like, yeah, you know, he has people who have descended from him in the same crazy line. Yeah.
Hey, man, and you see a lot of what he did in movies.
No doubt about it.
You see it in Mandingo. You see that in Mandingo. You see it in Roots. You see it in a lot of that stuff, man. That you saw a lot of what you're talking about with when they bored the guy, when they bored well, I forget his name in Mandingo, but when they bored him, when they bored him in the pot, and they put the oil on him and stuff like that, they slapped it on him with the, you know. And these things, they believe in this stuff, man.
No doubt about it.
They believe in this silliness.
Man, before you go, man, because I want to make a few more points before we end the show. I got to ask you the burning question everybody want to know. You taking the vaccine?
Oh, no, brother. No, sir.
Good. Thank you. You're probably going to be with us then. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to hear.
No, sir.
I'm glad to hear that you giving yourself a fighting chance. Hey, man, listen.
I'm not gonna give myself COVID.
Come on, man. Right? Yeah, fight back, man. You know, don't have your people's burying you because you listen to Samuel, the 21st century Cartwrights. You know, yeah, we got to have your mind right. Don't listen to the Cartwrights. All right, brother, let me jump off here, man, and make a couple more points. I really appreciate you calling in, man. That's dope.
Peace to you, brother. I love you, man.
I love you the same, brother. All right, to be continued.
All right.
Yeah, so like my man Walt just called in, man, right? You know, you see this stuff play out all the time, like I mentioned a bit ago. Samuel Cartwright's legacy lives on. Like, the white ruling class can see colonial subjects resisting colonialism, and they say we got a mental problem. They call it ADD. Like, you know, we send our children to the to the nastiest, most vicious, oppressive institutions so that they can begin basic learning, and before they can even learn how to write their own names, they're being taught that there's some kind of American. They're pledging allegiance to stuff they don't even know what the words mean, etc. Just all this imposed on our children, and when our children rightfully reject it, can't pay attention to it because it's nauseating and it makes you want to fidget, vomit, do something other than listen to the stuff. Then the Samuel Cartwright at that school that you take your child to get vaccinated and other stuff will tell you, oh, you need a pill because your child has the 21st century drapetomania. It's called ADD. They running from the slave masters teaching. They too lazy. They got the 21st century diaesthesia aethiopica. They can't learn. They too lazy to learn, when in reality it's just us resisting colonialism, no matter what these so-called 21st century Samuel Cartwrights say. So now a word from the word. Let me see. We got some time. We're gonna try to dig into this a little bit. Gonna do some reading. You know how we do. If you have your book, you know what I'm talking about, right? Some of y'all are Baptists too. If you have your book, go to 2 Kings, chapter 5, verse 1. One of my favorite stories in the Bible. It's called the Naaman story. It says, now, this is chapter 5, verse 1. Now, Naaman, a commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. One of the coolest things about this Naaman story is reading the story and kind of growing up, knowing the story and maturing in the words of the word. I learned, let me back up and say this. The reason why they ain't teach y'all about Samuel Cartwright is because they don't want you to know how absolutely foolish some of these so-called scientific diagnoses and concepts and stuff they impose on us really are. And if you knew about Samuel Adolphus Cartwright, then you might be a bit more suspicious of these 21st century Samuel Adolphus Cartwrights. But they don't teach you about that charlatan, because they want to make it possible. Keep it possible for these other charlatans to impose colonial virus vaccines, ADD treatments, and whatever the hell else they shove on us in the name of medical science. But Naaman, the thing I like about Naaman is he had a whole lot of stuff going for him, right? Naaman was the man, a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. And if you read the story, you'll learn that Naaman used to, do his thing in front of his army, in front of his soldiers, sharp and shiny and slick. But when he went home and took off his uniform, when the sun went down, when nobody was around to praise his courage and his military prowess, etc., Naaman was a nasty, stinking leper whose sores would ooze, whose body would ache and rack with pain. And one thing I learned as I matured with this story is this: never seek to mimic, imitate, or duplicate anybody else's lifestyle externally until you've ultimately understood their internal conditions, because you don't know what's going on the inside when you look at somebody and see them having it going on the outside. So never seek to mimic, imitate, or duplicate anybody else's lifestyle externally until you've ultimately understood the internal condition. And so Naaman, a leper, wanted to get rid of his disease. And if you read right there in 2 Kings chapter 5, you'll see that Naaman wanted a quick fix. He wanted the colonial virus vaccine right away. He wanted to put the oil on me, beat me with the strap, fix me, but there was no quick fix. And he wanted the fix was, the prophet said, Elisha was the prophet, told him to go down to the river Jordan and bathe in the river Jordan 7 times. Now, one thing about us, we want everything fast too, right? And so in our minds, when we read the Bible and it says that Naaman went to the Jordan River was nasty. Naaman was like, I shouldn't say nasty. It looked dirty, but in reality, it had all the stuff in it that Naaman needed to heal his leprosy. He wanted to go bathe in clean water. He's like, well, I got to go to the Jordan River. Ain't nothing no better than that. But no, it was the Jordan River that had in it all the hydrotherapeutic stuff necessary to heal Naaman. And so you read the story and you read that Naaman went to the river and he dipped himself in the river 7 times. And on the 7th time he came up and his leprosy was healed. So it's easy for us who like to have stuff happen so quickly and can imagine that that's how things progress in the real world, right? When we read the story, it's easy for us to conclude that Naaman just went to the pool, dipped in, and then came out clean. But the Bible doesn't necessarily say that. And it's easier for me to believe, knowing a little bit about the human body, a little bit about hydrotherapy, time, et cetera, and the way the human body approaches and deals with ailments. It's easier for me to conceive that on several occasions, on numerous different times, over the period of some time, Naaman did this hydrotherapy where he went to the river, dipped in, and on another occasion went and dipped until he did that 7 times. It's almost like, if they say, take this pill, take 7 pills, right? If you don't take them all on that day, right, you might need to take them over the course of a week. And after you've taken them for a week, then you healed. So in my mind, it's easier for me to believe and understand that Naaman's condition took some time to deal with, just like most of the ailments the human body encounters even today. And I say all of that to say, don't look for the quick fix. Don't look for the quick fix. I'm not telling you to don't go get the vaccine because I'm not a medical doctor. But what I am telling you is to be intelligent. Don't believe the Samuel Adolphus Cartwrights of the 21st century who tell you stuff based on some study or some experiment on that they do on us, right? And they use us, bait us, pull us into it, and then we follow the tomfoolery, hook, line, and sinker. Don't do it. No, don't do it. Be more like Naaman. Be willing to do the uncomfortable, the unfavorable. Be willing to to struggle a little bit. Caller, we got 1 minute, but I'm gonna take your call. Come on in. Come on, caller. Talk to me.
Just want you to know that my oldest brother is named Norman, and
what's your name, caller?
64 years old, and I'm thinking about taking the virus.
What's your name, caller?
I'm sorry, the vaccine.
What's your name,
What
caller?
do you think?
What's your name, caller?
Just call me DJ.
DJ, I think that you should use your head. If you're gonna take it, don't take it just because the Samuel Adolphus Cartwrights say so. Take it because you've done your study. You've studied to show yourself approved. You've done your research. You know what's going on. Don't just take it because the Cartwrights say so. You use your mind, use your head, listen to your body. Certainly don't. If you're not sick, don't take it. I mean, in my view, right? Don't do something that just because somebody says so. Be intelligent. That's my best advice.
Thank you.
100%. And I'm going to bring the show, the Life Malcolm Show, to a close with this quote. And you've heard it before. Malcolm X, I got it from Malcolm. I'm sure Malcolm got it from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. The name and story, Tuskegee, Samuel L. Adolphus Cartwright, the Tuskegee Experiment, colonial virus vaccine. That's what we talked about right here on the Life Malcolm Show. I hope you had something to say. I hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate the calls and looking forward to seeing you next week. Until then,